Welcome back. In the previous video of the lesson The Journey, we understood that the narrator's father carried the luggage to the bus stop. The narrator tried to catch up with his father. Let's proceed with the further reading. I hope you're ready with your books and pencil to jot the meanings. Having walked fast, I was tired. Moreover, I had to cross 2 hills on the way up to the spot. I quickly sat down on a rock. My father laughed at my plight. So this little distance has tired you? Rest for a while, but we have to be in time for the bus. This paragraph makes us understand that the narrator had not only crossed 2 hills before he met his father, but also that he walked very fast. These reasons made him look tired. Hence, his father laughed at his unfortunate situation. He asked him whether that short distance had made him tired. Then he insisted him to rest for a while, keeping in mind that they had to be in time for the bus. Have a look at the word plight. It means dangerous or difficult situation. The synonyms are trouble, difficulty, extremity, and the antonyms are blessing, boon, good fortune. The sentences are: most wealthy people are unaware of the plight of the poor. Raj's friends laughed at his plight when he was not able to score good marks in a simple IQ test. Write your own sentences with the word plight. Father was quiet for some time. He thoughtfully looked at the sun for a moment, and then his eyes fell on the can of homemade wine that I was carrying. Wetting his lips with his tongue, he said in a matter-of-fact manner, "I am thirsty." In this paragraph, we understand that it was a silent atmosphere when he sat to take rest. Narrator noticed that his father, who was not talking first, looked at the sun, thinking about something, and simultaneously looked at the can of wine he was carrying. It was clear that he was thirsty and wished to have a little wine from the can. So, in a mouth-watering manner, he simply said that he was thirsty. Have a look at the phrase matter of fact. It means a straightforward and unemotional opinion. Children, notice that the father's way of speaking also was the same, that is, being straightforward in mentioning that he was thirsty. There is another hyphenated compound word used in the above sentence, and it is homemade wine. Let's move ahead to the next paragraph. I gave him the can of wine. He poured himself a mug and handed me the can. He drank all of it at one go. He then arranged the belt that was attached to the trunk carefully on his forehead. We know in the previous paragraph, father mentioned that he was thirsty. In response to this, the narrator handed the can of wine he was carrying. Serving himself with a mug from the can, father returned it and drank the content in one breath. After quenching his thirst, father adjusted the belt that was with the trunk cautiously on his forehead. So, this was the picture: my father carrying my luggage on his back and me following him with a tiny bag in my hand. We were walking up a narrow hill road, and neither of us uttered a word, as if we were strangers who spoke different languages. In these sentences, the narrator tried to describe the scenario of both of them walking towards the bus stop, in which his father was seen carrying the narrator's trunk on his back and himself walking behind with a small bag in his hand. The path that they were ascending was not only hilly but also very small in its width, and while they were moving through such a path, none of them let out a single word, making themselves assume as unknown persons who spoke languages which neither of them knew. Let's proceed. I did not know what was going on in his mind from time to time, it crossed my mind that it was improper for me to let father carry the luggage. I wanted to tell him that I would like to carry the trunk myself, but my guilt and shame did not allow me to do so. Here, we understand in these sentences that the narrator wasn't speaking. He was trying to notice his father, yet he wasn't able to know what he was thinking. But for himself, it struck his mind now and then that he had not done the correct thing by allowing his father to bear the burden of his luggage. Also, he accepts that he wanted to tell his father that he himself would carry his trunk. He could not succeed in making himself to do so because of his wrong deed and loss of face. Let me know whether you know the meaning of guilt. Yes, it is fact of having committed a specified offense. Disgrace and remorse are its synonyms. Pride, respect, virtue are its antonyms. And the sentences are, when his parents caught him stealing money, a shadow of guilt darkened his eyes. The acquisition punished him for his guilt. Further, this self-consciousness had probably to do with my education, the white-collar job that I had, or quite simply my pride. Here, he further elaborates and accepts that he was a self-obsessed person, and this quality ignited in him as he was a highly qualified and professional worker. In simple terms, he credited with his self-esteem. Self-conscious, it means nervous or uncomfortable because you are worried about what people think about you or your actions. One more hyphenated compound word, and that is white-collar job, which means belonging or pertaining to the ranks of office and professional workers whose jobs generally do not involve manual labor or the wearing of a uniform or work clothes. Somehow I had the feeling that if I carried the luggage, my father and my people, in fact the whole world, would laugh at me and I would be belittled. This sentence makes us understand that due to his continuous awareness of being a highly qualified professional, he felt that he would be regarded as an unimportant person when he carried his luggage. Not only his father, but also his people ought to accept the truth. The entire world would make fun of him. Have you seen the word belittled? It means to regard a portrayal or less impressive or important appearance. It indicates the synonyms are reduce and diminish, and the antonyms are upgrade, magnify. The sentences are, it was a point to make Cinderella feel belittled in every aspect by her stepsisters. When the teacher scolded the student for cheating in front of the whole class, he felt belittled. Father had provided for my education, and I had been able to realize his dreams. My parents were truly proud of me. Here, the narrator is further trying to support his self-consciousness by saying that his father was the reason for him to become an officer who had shed his sweat in getting his education. But he felt that he had paid back to his father by becoming what he desired. He also felt that his honor and reputation were the reasons for his parents to feel accomplished. It was through me that they had earned a greater degree of admiration and respect from the villagers. My father would not like to see me carrying a trunk on my back and would be very hurt if I did so. I concluded that it would be better to let him carry it. Here, the narrator felt that a strong feeling of importance and honor was earned by his parents in his village because of him only. So after receiving great appreciation and praise As a result of his father's hard work, he was sure that his father wouldn't like to see his honorable son carry a trunk on his back. Taking this point for granted, he ended up the argument that he should not stop his father from carrying his trunk. Have a look at the word admiration. It means respect and warm approval. Praise, esteem, compliments are its synonyms. Criticism, dishonor, disregard are its antonyms. The father expressed his admiration towards the two men who saved his son's life. The soldiers who risked their lives for the safety of the country are a source of admiration for their countrymen. Let's proceed. Father was used to carrying luggage anyway. He was stronger and more skilled than me in these matters. I had never got into physical labor, having stayed in hostels right from my childhood. So, in spite of my youth and strength, I was physically useless. I continued walking silently with father. At this point of time, the narrator and his father were just walking along without talking to each other. But the narrator was continuously involved in his own thoughts. So, he continued thinking further and felt that due to his stay in hostels to get education, he was not in a habit of doing manual work. On the other hand, father had spent his life working manually to earn a living for his family, and this manual had made him stronger, experienced and efficient rather than his son. So once again, he accepts that though he was young and strong, he was physically unfit. Thus, he continued walking quietly along with his father. Let's proceed. We rested at two places on the way and had a tiffin, but we hardly talked. Finally, we reached Dirang. The bus from Tawang had not yet reached Dirang, and so we had some time in hand. We entered a tea shop and sat facing each other. In these sentences, we come to know that taking two halts on their way, they had their lunch in the same manner without talking to each other. At length, when they eventually reached Dirang, they came to know that the bus coming from Tawang till then had not reached. During the short gap of time, they went into a tea shop and sat in front of each other. Father appeared tired. I felt sorry for him, but couldn't bring myself to say anything. I asked the waiter to get us 2 cups of tea. Just as I was going to take my first sip, I heard father's voice. "Do you have a pair of old shoes?" "Why?" I asked. "The road is uneven and full of pebbles. It hurts while walking." Sitting facing each other was the moment the narrator realized the exhaustiveness of the father. Though he felt very sympathetic towards his father, he couldn't empathize his feelings. He ordered 2 cups of tea. When he was about to take his first mouthful, he heard his father asking him a pair of used shoes. When he asked the reason to ask for the shoes, he simply replied that the road was full of small stones and also was not smooth, due to which he felt pain while walking. Have a look at the phrase, "couldn't bring myself." It means to force oneself to do something that one does not want to do. The synonyms are bother and make. Here are the sentences. Standing guilty for spoiling the drawing, my sister couldn't bring herself to say anything. The disabled man couldn't bring himself out of his suffering. Let's proceed. I looked at father's bare feet. Never having worn shoes, his feet had developed cracks and somehow resembled those of an elephant. I noticed this for the first time. When his father had asked for an old pair of shoes, the narrator had a glance at his feet, which were wearing nothing. He compared them to an elephant's feet because of the strenuous work he used to do without any footwear. Such close observation was done by him for the first time. I hadn't noticed that the road was uneven. I didn't have to, since I was wearing a pair of hunting boots. I checked my wallet and saw I still had rupees 40 with me. A pair of canvas shoes would cost around rupees 12, and the remaining amount would be enough for me to get to Bomdila. Here, the narrator mentions that he had noticed that the road was uneven for the first time. He had never observed the road because he was walking with ease, thanks to his pair of hunting boots. Deciding to give an amount to his father to purchase a canvas pair, he offered rupees 12. He had only rupees 40 in his wallet, keeping the rest amount aside to reach Bomdila. Let's proceed. My father protested. Give me an old pair. You don't have to spend money on new shoes. I couldn't convince him to buy a new pair. Reluctantly, I gave him the hunting boots I was wearing. When the narrator offered an amount to purchase a new pair, his father objected and asked him to give him his used pair as he must not spend his money on shoes. Unable to make him agree in purchasing a new pair, unwillingly he gave him the hunting boots he was wearing. Have a look at the word protested. It means disagreed. And the synonyms are disapproved, objected. The antonyms are approved and agreed. The sentences are: people protested about the rise in prices. Mother protested to her son's continuous watching of TV. Have a look at the word reluctantly. It means in an unwilling and hesitant way. The synonyms are hesitantly, unwillingly, and the antonyms are willingly, readily. The sentences are: I reluctantly went to the party. Ravi reluctantly did the work assigned by his father. I then took out my pair of leather shoes from the trunk and noticed my father's face lighting up with contentment. Suddenly, he looked at me and said, "Take care, write to us." After giving his father the shoes he was wearing, he wore a pair of leather shoes that he had in his trunk. While he was wearing his leather shoes, he observed his father's face lit up with happiness and satisfaction. He then looked at him and asked him to take care of his health and also write a letter. Have a look at the word contentment. It means a state of happiness and satisfaction. Fulfillment and gladness are its synonyms. Sad, disappoint, upset are its antonyms. And the sentences are: the contentment you feel after a good workout is worth the pain. He was content after passing the exam. Father wanted to say something, but the bus started moving. I saw my father gradually receding into the distance. I saw that the road we had come by looked like a giant motionless rope. Father would use the same road to go back home. After asking him to write a letter, the writer felt that his father wanted to say goodbye or something, but he couldn't as the bus started moving. The narrator saw his father disappearing into the far off. He also noticed the road that they walked seemed like a huge stationary rope. Have a look at the word receding. It means to go or move back further from a previous position. Diminish, lessen and fade are its synonyms, and the antonyms are advance, expand and enlarge. The sentences are: as he was not studying, his grades started receding. The poles are receding due to global warming. Let's proceed. Simultaneously, our journey started in two opposite directions, with me seated in the luxurious seat of a bus and father walking back with weary legs on the pebble-strewn road. The giant motionless road was the same which his father used again to go back home. Two actions started at the same point of time in contradictory directions, where the narrator was comfortably in the moving bus, but the father had to walk in spite of his tired legs on the road filled with pebbles. In this way, the narrator ends his story, taking along with him all the late realization towards his father's hardships. So children, this story is an example of how we appreciate things our parents have done for us only when it's word plight. What are the antonyms of guilt? What are the synonyms of belittled? What did the narrator notice for the first time? Who had provided for the narrator's education? What was the destination of the narrator? Why did the narrator's father ask for a pair of old shoes? What do you mean by receding? What was compared to a giant motionless rope? Mention some of the compound words that you have come across in the lesson. And now, here's the written task. Read the questions carefully and write the answers. What does the phrase opposite direction in the last sentence suggest? How is the narrator's journey different from that of his father's? Why do you think the narrator had not noticed the cracks on his father's feet? What does this tell us about the narrator? The author feared that the whole world would laugh at him if he carried the trunk. Was the fear imaginary or real? Give reasons for your answer. And last of all, why did the author think that he was physically useless? With this, we come to the end of the explanation of the lesson, The Journey. I want you to read the text, watch the video twice, and try to comprehend it. Thank you and have a good day.